I have eyes on a runner. Male. Do not engage alone. I repeat, do not engage the target alone. I have a shot. I'm going to take it. Stand! Officer Sophy Shannon dropped her radio and aimed her firearm at the runner and yelled for him to halt. When she got no response, she fired 3 rounds at the target. She knew she landed all 3 rounds because she could see his shirt shoot out fibers on impact, but he never broke pace. In the next instant, he was nearly on top of her. He moved in a serpentine pattern and closed the remaining distance before sweeping her legs out from under her with one arm and pulling her upper body down with the other. He pulled out a couple of zip ties and duct tape and got to work binding her hands and feet in one solid mass, taking most of her leverage away from her. He taped her mouth when she tried to scream. He lifted her in one arm and put her in the back seat of her cruiser. You are absolutely gorgeous. When I clear my name, I'd love to take you out for dinner. Shannon was a little taken aback, but she continued struggling, hoping to create space in her bonds that she could exploit later. Stop struggling. I need you to remember something. When Shannon didn't quit struggling, the man tapped her cheek repeatedly until she stopped making noise. Better. Now, when they find you, I want you to have them brief you about me. Then remember these 3 words, sleight of hand, when you asked to see the last day I was in the headquarters. Understand? Shannon nodded. Good. There are just a couple more things I've got to do before I can leave you alone. He undid her belt and Shannon started bucking, trying to shove him away. Hey, calm down. I just can't have you near your gun or spray. The stun gun's a joke. He took her materials and threw them into the passenger seat before hopping behind the wheel and taking off. When he stopped, he added another layer of duct tape and then threw her belt and all its contents as far as he could manage before saying his goodbye and taking off at an angle from the direction he drove. At headquarters, Shannon was interrogated for hours on end. But his words stuck in her head and she refused to answer any questions until she was briefed on the man who handed her rear end to her on a silver platter. We could arrest you for obstruction of justice. You think we're nasty now? You could, but that would defeat the purpose. I know it takes time to file all the charges, even if it only takes a few minutes. Every second seems to count here, so why not skip the threats and brief me? I mean, you're trying to track down a man that runs faster than anyone I've ever seen and seems to have no endurance limit. You're wasting time as it is. One of the detectives was about to yell at the top of his lungs when a stern-looking man entered and wheeled in a small flat-screen TV hooked up to a laptop. You two are dismissed. When the detectives left, he turned on his devices. You do know how one-way glass works, right? I have someone waiting outside to make sure they don't exploit the glass and mics. He turned to her with a time-worn expression. You want to know who you're dealing with? Shannon nodded. Then buckle up. I've got a PowerPoint. The stern man got the PowerPoint going and seemed to grow solemn. You engaged with a target that has 2 genetic mutations and a mental disorder. Shannon flashed a startled look before refocusing on the PowerPoint. He has a genetic mutation that allows his body to rid of lactic acid faster. This means he can train longer and harder and more frequently than just about anyone you know. Complementing that is his other mutation where his body somewhat ignores muscle inhibitors. Because of this, he puts on muscle mass with ease. Those two together make him a physical force that few have ever seen, but that can be dealt with in any other individual. What makes him particularly dangerous is that he has multiple personality disorder. His is one of the most extreme cases anywhere. There are stories of a granny with a Russian powerlifter personality that can lift full-grown men above her head when the Russian is in control. He has 3 that we know of. We call them Base, Infiltrator, and Monster, for simplicity. Base is his original personality, one that is likable and sociable. Infiltrator makes him cold and calculated. He let that personality take over when he went overseas on tour and started racking up bodies in a heartbeat. The military unleashed him in an enemy base with over 5,000 troops inside. 20 survived. Don't get me wrong, he used a lot of explosives and ammunition, and he came out with more than a few scratches. But he won, and the military had POWs. Monster is, as the name implies, he's unnatural. His body undergoes changes to make him more physically durable, tougher skin, slightly more flexible bones, and denser muscles. You said you shot him 3 times and he didn't slow down? That's why. The vest he stole made sure the bullets didn't go through him, and the monster made sure he could take the impact. All that put together, along with his training, and you have someone with physical feats that rival low level Olympians. Is proficient in dozens of martial arts, and has the intelligence to think things through step by step to outsmart some of the most cunning minds in the world, and you have a real threat that we really don't know how to deal with. Oh, and did I forget to mention he can run for a full 24 hours and hardly break a sweat? What do we even do against that? The US government put out an order to capture him so they could study his genetics, and everyone who tried to grab him wound up dead. He impaled them on some rebar and left them in front of the White House. Infiltrator is better than anything they can throw at him, save for bullets. But capturing him alive isn't an option. So please, help us. Shannon explained the odd situation where he stated that he would clear his name and that he'd like to take her out for dinner when it happened. He was so confident in himself and his innocence. Then she explained what he told her to remember if they reviewed surveillance footage of him during his last day at headquarters. Sleight of hand? Is he saying someone slipped him the drive?